All right, looking at Bitcoin in the larger trend. I know I keep coming back to the larger overall 1 week trend, but I'm really trying to look at the forest from the trees here, not get too caught up in the minutia of this trend. We've broken through the 1.618 extension, right? And are likely on our way to going parabolic, especially if 2000 breaks. What I mean by parabolic is I mean on the larger trend. Like you can see here, there's probably a smaller move, and once we broke out of that all-time high, it went parabolic up. Same thing happened here. It had a big correction, broke out of the all-time high, and then went parabolic to the upside where it started to shoot up straight vertical. One thing that I'm looking for, if you'll notice that this green candle here was larger than the entire prior trend. So if we were to have a similar situation at this point of accelerated momentum, then this green candle here, if it were a 1 week candle, has the potential to hit 3000 on the nose. If we break 2000 and hit that point of accelerated momentum, then it wouldn't surprise me to see a 1 week candle that dwarfs the size of the entire 3-year bull trend. So this is what I'm looking at specifically, and generally I'm based on what the kind of action I've seen in altcoins, I'm leading towards trying to overestimate than underestimate the Bitcoin bull trend right now. This isn't your typical Bitcoin breakout or bull trend. You notice how the periods of consolidation have been tightening up and getting shorter. 6 months right here, nice and healthy. 6 months right here. Then we had these V-bottom corrections. 2 months. 2 months. And now since we broke out of this cup and handle and larger parabola, it looks like we're gaining a lot of momentum. So if we break, we're not getting a lot of consolidation right now. And this is normal because I think in order for this larger bull cycle to complete itself, and I'm including altcoins with this as well, I think Bitcoin needs to go out with a bang, with a grand finale, with a parabolic blowout. And once that happens, and if we do see a reversal on Bitcoin from bull to bear, and a parabolic blowout usually spells a reversal, right? There's a lot of new money coming in, a lot of new people coming in to buy Bitcoin, and this can definitely push the prices up really, really fast. A lot of those people have been buying Bitcoin to also get access to altcoins, so we're seeing this cycle where Bitcoin and altcoins are going up. So what that tells me is that if Bitcoin hits the bubble territory, which it's not in the bubble territory yet, it has to go up straight vertical some more on the larger time frame to be in full bubble territory. But once that bubble pops, the likelihood of it dragging down most of the altcoins and the altcoin bubble popping is a lot higher, because a lot of the altcoin dollar values, like not only have altcoins have been gaining on Bitcoin, but because Bitcoin has been going up, it's been creating definitely a growth cycle with the dollar value. Now, altcoins and ICOs are definitely in a bubble right now. So, tread lightly when you're trying to catch these all-time high breakouts, stuff like that. Get to know the difference between accumulation and a distribution cycle. I tend to stay away from the breakouts when we look closer to distribution, but so it's not a matter of if the bubble pop, it's a matter of when. And if you think anything lasts permanently, or if you're permabull, then you'll be in for a rude awakening when the bubble does pop, right? So my plan is the higher the price goes, the more I will end up selling. My overall goal is to sell 50% of my entire crypto portfolio. And then I know I will have locked in hard profit off of the table. Regardless of if I sell the tops or not, I'm going to scale out incrementally along the way. Maybe at that 3000 level, I'll sell 10% of my overall Bitcoin holdings, and so on and so forth. And obviously, once we start to see reversal then I'll sell some more with the eventual goal of selling 50% my crypto portfolio. And there's a couple reasons why I'm doing that. Number one, not only to take out all the risk capital I've ever put in to crypto, but also to lock in hard profit on the overall larger cycle and trend, which is important to me because I started to accumulate Bitcoin down here, right? Bitcoin has been the market that I've been the most patient with. So I need to lock in hard profit. And then two, psychologically and emotionally, I'll be able to trade the bear trend stress-free, carefree. I will have locked in profit, and then nothing that could happen after that point will, I won't really be able to lose money at that point once I lock in hard profit. And everything I'll be trading with from that point on will just be pure profit as well, right? So it's that kind of mindset, and when you lock in profit like that kind of mindset can allow you to trade stress-free and with a clear mind to make clear decisions. Because I want to be in the best mental shape and emotional shape I can be in when we eventually hit a bear trend, so I can trade it with efficiency and not have any negative emotions like fear or anything influence my trading decisions. And you can make just as much money in a bear market as you can in a bull market if you play your cards right. So I'm preparing for the next cycle and that next season, and this is why I'm really looking at the larger picture. But it's important not to try to call tops and short into this type of thing until you see real reversals, because these things can go up a lot higher and a lot faster than what most people anticipate. But locking in hard profit along the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If I look at the smaller time frames on Bitcoin, we've had a series of breakouts here, and some nice corrections already. So we broke out of this ascending triangle formation. We also had a breakout right here as well. Right? And you had classic things like prior resistance turning support, even a little pullback, prior resistance turn support. I think that if 2000 breaks, we're going to see a point of accelerated momentum. If you were to treat this like a breakout trade, if you do decide to long Bitcoin right now in anticipation of the break of 2000, or if you're already in a Bitcoin long, then just set your risk, right? I mean, if the market pulls back down and breaks down below this support line, then you could risk like 5% and just cut out, right? Or even less than that, right? If your entry point is a little bit sooner, then you can maybe you can risk a little bit more. But basically, if we break down below this prior resistance and this current support, then that would probably be a good area to cut out of. And if the market starts to break 2000 and starts trending faster with momentum, I would say just be patient with your targets. I mean, the 3000 area is really 55% from where we are now, and that's really an area I'm looking at. So I'm really aiming for overestimating than underestimating. And even then, it could end up going higher. But you also have to be mindful of the downside risk. I mean, it's up considerably. It can pull back at any point. Anything can happen on a fundamental level to warrant a pullback. If I were to look at the other side of the market, because it's good to always look at both sides. So if we did have a major correction, definitely a point of interest would be this, let's say a prior resistance turn support, right? If we had a big correction down to this area, then obviously it could make for a pretty good dip buy, at the very least for a bounce play. And then the overall larger trend would be healthy. But just looking at the overall larger bull cycle, I don't think we're necessarily in for that healthy correction per se. but anything is possible. I think we need to finish off with a parabolic blowout. That's what I'm leaning towards, but I still entertain both possibilities, right? So it's good to be prepared for any type of scenario. So that's Bitcoin. Looking at some other markets, basically I'm really a lot of the altcoins that have gone up considerably. What I'm really looking for is signs of breakdown and reversal. So let me just show you some quick trend lines that I'm looking at right now. Let's say for Ethereum, I mean, you had Ethereum, it broke out of the all-time highs, but you'll notice something, right? I stopped chasing these all-time high breakouts, by the way. To me, not all breakouts are equal, and the higher the prices, the bigger the risk and the less the reward. Obviously, like, look at this. If you were to try to catch this all-time high breakout, it only went up like 11% before having a major pullback. Chances are, if you caught this breakout and you're trying to quote-unquote ride the trend, then you would have lost money. In this case, the trend wouldn't really be your friend. And, you know, same goes for here. Yes, it's possible we could still push up higher, but this thing is like well over $100 right now. You know, right now, past the breakout point, we're up 4%. I'm more just being patient and waiting for possible reversals where I can get a good short entry. I'm not just going to try to pick a top for short, but, you know, if we were to, I would look at, you know, this immediate trend line right here. If we were to ever snap below this trend line, let's say we were to come back in here, and then if we were to snap below it, I think that would be a good entry for a short. So I'll definitely wait for confirmation before just shorting into things like this. You know, Ripple's another one that would be on my radar for shorting. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying that this can't push up higher or that the trend is over. But what I am saying is that I'm not chasing breakouts on things that could be on the verge of a distribution cycle because I don't like the risk to reward. For those of you who have been with me trading Ethereum, you'll know that I caught this accumulation reversal very early in the game. You know, did I necessarily sell the top? You know, I did catch a few breakouts here and got a couple quick trades. I didn't necessarily sell the top per se. I sold along the way and sold the last of my bags around here and then caught a couple of quick breakouts also along the way as it moved up, right, to squeeze some extra profit. So right now I'm just kind of staying away from the breakouts though. And it could go up higher and that's fine, right? I'd rather miss out than buy a top. So, and because really in essence, I haven't really missed out at all in this market. So this is one that I caught early. So I'm just going to wait to see if there's a potential, you know, reversal on that. Ripple's another one that's on my radar to short eventually when this bubble pops. You know, we've had a nice bounce. I'd look at the trend line on the smaller time frame. We've got an obvious trend line up through here. And if this trend line breaks, then probably be a good short entry. Right? Then we could end up having a classic, you know, washout and then a bounce and then prior support turn resistance. I think this market is up way too high. This is one of the most exaggerated markets we have. It's already made 3 waves up. Also, even though Ripple Labs said they're locking up the supply into smart contracts, in that they also said that they're going to be selling 1 billion of these a month, right, over the next 4 years. So that essentially works out to them selling the majority of their supply over the course of the next 4 years, right? I don't necessarily think this is sustainable per se. That said, it could still V-bottom and break out and go up higher, but I'm just watching the trend line, and when I have confirmation of a breakdown, I'll probably just probe a short on that. Looking at other markets that I'm in, so obviously, as you can see by my market report, Ethereum Classic is still currently my biggest bags. Even though I took profit along the way at various price points there, and on the bounce, and then on the other bounce, breakdown of that bounce. So basically I took profit at various price points. I still have 30%, not 30, 40% of my original ETC. You know, basically the big breakout trade that I sent an alert for was when the price was all the way down here. This breakout at the 1400 level. Also last year, for those of you who were with us, you'll know that we were accumulating, and this was definitely something on my radar for accumulation. A few trades in there here as well. So what I'm looking at is I'm just looking at the larger trend, see if it saw some juice, right? So we had a pullback there, but you'll notice that we are following a trend line, a perfect trend line here, right? So as long as this line holds up, it'll likely still be bullish. There's also the possibility of this getting listed on BTCC, Bitcoin China, which would be bullish. And there's a lot of activity in Korea right now. So you know, a fib extension on the much larger time frame, I think 0.01 would be a nice round number if we were to make it down to make it up to that level, but obviously could have corrections along the way. So even though this market has gone up a bunch, all things considering in respective to other altcoins that have gone up a lot, this has only made 2 big waves, right? Could make a third, and other altcoins have done crazier stuff than this, right? It's still actually technically hasn't, even though it's at all-time highs dollar-wise, it still hasn't broken out of this Bitcoin range. So I think we might see some more action. So I'm just riding it for now. Other markets that I'm in seem to be doing fairly well right now. Economy. Someone asked me in the room when the price is down here if this looked like a good dip buy, and I saw by the wicks, I said it looks like it's producing a higher low, so probably good dip buy. Again, this is something that should probably break out of its range, and as long as this trend line remains intact, even if it has a correction, I think the overall trend is still bullish. So I'm just being patient with this. I'd already pulled out all my risk capital, you know, took a nice little breakout trade here around the 3,000 mark, and you know, sold half my bags up in this region up here, you know. I think like basically like 30%, and then as it was breaking down, sold another 20. So all my risk capital's out. Now I'm just riding profit, so I can be very, very patient with this market. And then, you know, a lot of the other markets that I'm in are still in accumulation cycles, so they'll likely take some time before they actually start making bigger moves. You can start to see the early stages on some of these, right? Like this one just broke out, edgeless just kind of broke out of current range, although Liqui would probably be a better, you see the full story here. But we did break out of this range right here, and you know, prior resistance did turn support. So I'm being patient with these, right? I mean, just to give you a recap, and I didn't sell the top on this. I mean, this went up a lot higher than I anticipated. So here's a lesson in patience. But just to give you guys an example on something that I was patient with for at least a majority of the move until it started to pull off a 10x, and then I you know, sold my bags, but it's still pushing up higher. So this is a market that's going up much higher, even after 3 waves. It's going up much higher than anticipated, but that's okay because, you know, I got into it and started accumulating it. You know, got into it there, and then, you know, bought some more as a trade, specifically in the 7s area right before it kind of took off. So as you can see, is up significantly on this market. So here's a market that started off kind of in accumulation, and I actually had to wait over a year to get some real nice pay dirt on this. So it often pays to be patient and to hold for the longer moves. And you could still take profit on these little spikes and stuff just to lock in profit and take out risk capital. But a lot of these mid to low caps, like I'm thinking about the next cycle, the next wave of markets, right? I'm a dip buyer and an accumulator by nature. As far as a trader, I'll take the breakout trades as well, but for the most part, I love to accumulate. So I started really talking about time when it was down here, right? And so now this is up a bunch. So I'm in profit on this. I mean, dollar wise, I've tripled my money, but I'm really just watching it Bitcoin wise. And this immediate trend line right here, as long as this holds up, it should be good, roughly speaking. So being patient on time, and obviously you can see a classic, again, prior resistance is turned support, give or take. It's not super liquid, so sometimes you get a little spiky action happening. Right. Anyways, still not super liquid, but it's getting some attention. As I mentioned in my previous market reports, other markets that I'm in, Trust, right, TRST, all of a sudden it just produced a higher low, right? This is still very early in the game, very early market. Another one, I'll just show you another one that I bought that I didn't mention in yesterday's report, but I did buy some of this yesterday on this dip here, and I still think it's cheap. And an accumulation is another ETH-based token called Ant. I think it's Argon or something like that. They basically want to create like decentralized companies on the Ethereum blockchain. Very, very interesting looking project. So this could be another big one. And here's an interesting thing. There's a method to my madness and stocking up on a lot of these tokens and such on Bittrex. One, I can store a lot of these tokens offline, so it makes it safer to accumulate. Two, they're all on Bittrex, and Bittrex volume is starting to pick up. We're starting to see more new users. There's a lot of new money in the markets, and we're starting to see some of that money shifting out of Poloniex into Bittrex because of all the proms Poloniex has been happening. And so obviously a lot of the markets on Poloniex, in my opinion, are all overvalued, right? If you're new, you're saying, hey, why do you think this is overvalued? Well, you're talking to somebody who was looking at a lot of these markets and then had to accumulate some of these markets, several months ago when you're getting them for kind of like pennies on the dollar type of thing, right? I mean, if you think Ripple's a good buy now at 35 cents, 2 months ago is half a penny, right? So put that in perspective, that kind of scale in perspective based on accumulation and distribution cycles, right? It could still push up higher, but I make the majority of my money in accumulating things and being patient, right? So these are accumulation plays, and they just require patience, forest from the trees. I find these to be the easiest plays. And yeah, you could bleed a little bit and be under like 30% or whatnot unless you buy the exact bottom. But that's fine, right? It's usually forced from the trees, and usually by doing some diversification, the winners tend to outpace the losers anyway, so it all kind of balances out. When you're accumulating, a diversification strategy is pretty good for stuff like that. Number three, we could also get a bunch of any one of these tokens, because they're big Ethereum-based projects, could one day get listed on Poloniex at any point, which could definitely create a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out. Other markets like DataBits and stuff like that. This one had like a big spike up, and I'm in profit on this one, but I'm just being patient on markets like this. So just for fun, I'm going to show you guys two markets that I've been slowly accumulating over on Cryptopia. Like these are really low illiquid, bottom of the barrel new projects that seem to still be around and survive. So I check out the Slack and this and that, and these are two kind of like anonymous projects. They're over on Cryptopia. Literally, they're bottom of the barrel prices type of thing. This is Spectre Cash. You can kind of see this trend line here, still very, very cheap. And any one of these markets can really take off at some point, but they obviously have some higher risk. I don't talk about illiquid markets like this a lot because I want to prevent. Actually, someone's got a little bit of a sell wall there, but that could also make it easier to accumulate as well. I don't want to trigger, these illiquid markets. If a bunch of people start buying them, then what ends up happening is people could end up trading against each other or end up pumping the market. So usually when I accumulate, I like the stealth approach and not trying to push the markets up when accumulating. So keep that in mind, that if you get too much slippage and push the market up on a market order without trying to accumulate that, you could end up in the red just on slippage. Again, these are just patience plays where I bought some and I'm just holding. That's it. And another one, Hush, another type of anonymous coin. This is kind of like a Zcash clone. This one's definitely getting some attention, and that's that. Still dirt cheap. I mean, they're not even in the top 100 for market capitalization, right? Just to give you a perspective. Obviously, the benefit, let me just show you an example, right? The benefit of getting in, and you could say, okay, well, why would you buy some new projects that are dirt cheap and just wait? Why would you do that? Especially if the market's not doing anything, if it's not going anywhere, right? And be mindful of the risks that these projects, any one of these could fail. There's fundamentals. I would definitely put them in a high risk to reward category. But just to give you an example of a market that, had you accumulated it, you would have made a ridiculous amount of money. And it required a lot of patience. So here's Expanse, right? And I'm not really trading Expanse now, but if you just so happen to accumulate this when it was new and cheap in 2015, it did a whole lot of nothing for a long time. Basically, for close to a year, it didn't do a lot, right? And then all of a sudden, if you'd bought down here and just was patient about it, then all of a sudden one day you'd wake up and this was kind of like just a big pump and dump that happened, but you'd wake up and you could just sell into strength, and this thing increased 12,000%. Now that's ridiculous, and not every single market that accumulates is going to do that, but this just is an example of some of the benefit to this strategy and just buying really, really cheap when no one cares about the market, right? And being patient, holding. Right now, everyone's chasing the market, right? But if you're one of those people who just accumulated low, you wouldn't have to even play this game and all this noise and trying to catch the breakouts and all this kind of stuff, because you'd be in, all you'd be thinking about is selling, right? So I personally love that type of strategy, and it's worked out really well for me. And it doesn't mean that there can't be duds or failures. Maybe some of my picks will end up completely flopping. And when I accumulate, it's kind of take off. Bull or bag hold is essentially what it works out to for my options. I rarely, it's not like a breakout trade where I set exit targets and stops and stuff like that. When I accumulate, I'm either going to bag hold it, cost average down a bit and bag hold it, and go down with the ship, or it's going to take off and I'm going to ride it type of thing, right? Those are generally my two options. I don't really pay too much attention to the day-to-day noise when I'm accumulating something. So, if I'm down like 20 or 30% on something, again, forest from the trees, right? I've been down on things that I've accumulated and then still made a ton of money once they finally take off. So usually it's patience and strong hands and accumulation, right? See, people use the term strong hands, like they overuse that term. Strong hands doesn't necessarily mean you don't take profit and scale out on a bull trend, right? Strong hands means you have strong hands when you're accumulating something in an accumulation cycle, right? There's nothing wrong with taking profit along a bull trend at various different points up. It's profit, right? If some people, there's a fine line between strong hands and bag holder, and some people, they'll just hold. It goes up, it goes parabolic, hits a distribution cycle. They've made all these paper gains, and then they lose it all because then the markets crash and lose 80% of the value that they gain. And they just hold. Yeah, I'm just in it for the long run, right? In it for the big picture. I mean, sure, if you've got some, you have to separate investments from trades, right? And I've got some Bitcoin as a long-term investment that I'm never going to sell no matter what, right? Maybe some things like Ethereum Classic as an investment. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff I'm accumulating right now, they're for trades, right? So when I start getting triples and higher, if I start getting triples and higher, then I start to scale out profit along the way. And I don't necessarily need to nail tops or whatever. It's always good to let some ride, obviously, and to have some that you're patient with. But for the most part, for me, strong hands is just accumulating. And when I use a cost averaging down strategy, it's only in the accumulation phase. I never use that strategy, and I'll never cost average down when the markets are crashing. And so some people think cost averaging down is a bad strategy. It's only a bad strategy if you apply it to the wrong type of market condition. Like if you start cost averaging down on Expanse right now or some other market, then you're going to be in for a world of hurt. But if you cost average down when it's in an accumulation cycle, then that's actually a smart play. You'll end up with a larger position at a cheaper price, right, when it takes off. So you just have to identify, is this an accumulation? And if it is, then you can apply that. Obviously, there comes a point where perhaps you stop doing that. But I like to see a lot of sideways and like double bottom and stuff like that in the accumulation range. So anyways, I was just using this as an example. Other markets that are on my radar that I'm not in yet but are on my radar, I have still been looking at Poloniex coins, but not the ones that are up 1 billion%. I've been looking at Poloniex coins that haven't, like, they've gone up, but they haven't really done anything super crazy. So Zcash would definitely be one on my list. But with a market like this, I mean, you could buy the bottom right here, right? And I'm not going to. I'll probably just wait for confirmation of a breakout on this descending trend line to know that it's pushing up and making another wave out. But we've had some fake outs before with stuff like that. So Zcash I'm definitely looking at. It's a Poloniex coin that hasn't really taken off. It's also really, really high right now, and 300% annual inflation. MaidSafe hasn't broken out of its range, even though it's at the upper echelon of its range. It hasn't broken out of its range. This would be another thing that I would keep my eyes out on if it starts to break out of this range. I don't mind catching breakouts on markets on Poloniex that are still kind of within their range and haven't done crazy things. But, for me to start catching breakouts on things like Ripple and stuff and Ethereum, I just feel like they're too high. So I've got my eyes focused on other potential markets that haven't really pushed up and are still kind of range bound. So if I see breakouts happening on some of these, I might decide to play that game. All right, so that's it for today's market update. Cheers.